So, we are still in chapter 2. Under chapter 2, we already discussed sa video natin yung Coulomb's law and the definition and concept behind electric field intensity. So, I hope and I assume na alam nyo na kung ano yung Coulomb's law, alam nyo na kung how do we solve for electric field intensity and what is electric field intensity itself. So, in this next topic natin, or from the previous topics, ang ginagawa pa lang natin is we are solving the electric field intensity around the point charge. Meron kang point, for example, yung nahuling example natin, at 0.034. That's located yung ating charge. So, ganun lang. Puro ganun. So, ibig sabihin, those are point charge. So, ang next topic natin, what happens if hindi point charge yung ating charge distribution? Yung charge natin is distributed throughout a specific volume. Paano kung may specific volume na siya? So, here, ang next topic natin, we will discuss a different distribution of charge. The first one is the volume charge. Then we also have the sheet charge. Kapag sheet charge naman, ito surface area. Volume charge, volume. Then lastly, we have a line charge. So those are the basic three charge distribution. And we will discuss them all. Then we will also try to derive some standard charge configurations later on. So the first one is the volume charge. So kung volume charge, so volume. So if the charge is distributed throughout a certain volume, then this is a volume charge. Now, before we do that, we define first a certain term. We call it the volume charge density. What is a volume charge density? Volume charge density, this is density. The density of the charge itself. So this will be rho V. So, ano ibig sabihin nito? This is the density of the charge, C, coulomb, per, when you say density, it's per something, diba? So, if it's weight density, volume density, and so on, so this should be per cubic meter, because this is a volume charge density. So, from that, we can derive the formula for rho V. Rho V is coulomb charge per volume. Charge per volume. So this will be dq, that's a differential charge. Kailangan din natin ng differential volume. Bakit ito yung ginamit natin? Because we know dv from the previous discussion in chapter 1. Dito na natin gagamitin yung ating dv. Remember yung mga dinerive natin na dv. So volume charge, so if you have a volume, let's say ito yung shape niya. Shape of, I don't know what's the shape of this one. Basta ganyan. Hindi siya point charge. So, meron siya volume. Now, I want to determine the electric field intensity at this point, P. So, what do? We will try to solve that by using, kukuha tayo ng maliit na volume from that large volume. Itong volume na to, kuha lang tayo ng maliit na volume dito. Maliit lang na volume ng charge. So, yan. And we will call the charge dq. Then, after that, we will take what's the effect of this small volume here, small charge, at that point. So, the effect will be also a small electric field intensity, dE. Diba? And this will be our R, our displacement vector. And dE yan. So, ganun. Then, after that, gawin natin for every element. Then, after mo kunin lahat ng element, anong susunod? We add them. Bakit i-add natin? Because we can apply superposition just like what we did from the previous discussion. Superposition theorem is applicable here. Kunin mo yung isa, kunin mo yung effect niya. After that, kunin mo ulit yung isa, and so on. After that, you add them all. Iyon yung superposition. Diba? Pero dito, dq yung kinukuha natin, maliit na charge. So, paano natin yung i-add, sir? Paano mag-add ng differential? Di integral calculus. Doon napapasok yung integral calculus. Integral calculus means summation, di ba? Malaking S lang yun eh. Ibig sabihin, sum. It's the limit of the Riemann sum. So, we will add them all through integral calculus. So, before we do that, ano muna yung dE? So, So, kailangan muna alam natin yung effect ng differential na yan. So, what will be the effect of that differential? dE. So, yung formula natin, ano yung formula natin ng electric field intensity? This is equal to Q all over 4 pi epsilon times R squared times that direction of that R. Pero here, yung Q natin is just a dQ. So, all over 4 pi, and let's assume this is epsilon naught. We are in space, in air. So, epsilon naught yung gagamitin natin. R squared is the magnitude, and AR is the direction of that R vector there. That will be our differential electric field intensity. That is the electric field intensity due to that differential charge dQ. Now, yung dQ natin, pwede nating isolve. Mayroon tayong formula. Rho V is equal to dQ over dV, di ba? So, this one, instead of using dQ, dQ will be now equal to rho V times dV, di ba? Cross-multiply mo lang to, yung formula na to. Rho V is equal to dQ over dV. So, to solve for dQ, rho V times dV. So, ipalit natin yan sa formula natin. So, dE will be equal to rho V dV. Ano yung rho V dV? dQ. So, 4 pi epsilon naught R squared AR. Then, nasolve na natin yung dE. Na anong susunod? We add them all. So, how do we add them all? We take the integral at both sides. So, this will be, so our net electric field intensity now will be equal to E times the integral of this. So, the integral, ilagay ko dito V. So, meaning it's a volume integral. So, pwede yung triple integration. Rho V, ilagay ko dito yung direction AR or over 4 pi epsilon naught R squared. Then, you multiply it with dV. Yung dV, alam na natin kung paano kunin yung dV. It depends on the coordinate system that we will be using here. Kung nasa rectangular ka, nasa cylindrical, or nasa spherical. Alam na natin yan. Nasolve na natin yung dV. Nag-example tayo ng chapter 1. How to evaluate a differential volume. Diba? Okay? So that is the electric field intensity now for a volume charge. So that's the first distribution. Then we have the next one. Yung tinatawag natin na sheet charge. Yung sheet charge, this is a surface area. Sheet charge. So this is a differential area. So if we draw this one, parang lang siyang plain, parang yung sa paper, parang ganyan. So this is a sheet charge. Hindi siya volume kasi manipis lang siya. So hanapin naman natin yung point P, yung electric field sa point P. So ulit, ang kukunin natin is maliit lang na dQ. Mayroon ulit tayong dQ dito. So, kailangan i-relate natin ulit yung ating charge density. So, mayroon ulit tayong charge density dito. Yung tinatawag naman natin na surface charge density. So, ito naman with respect to area density. So, we call it rho S. So, magiging unit ito will be coulomb per area square meter. So, rho S will be equal to dQ all over the differential surface area. We call it ds. Yan. So, yung dQ natin here can be written as rho S times ds. So, to solve for P, the electric field at P, kailangan natin ulit ng R, ito na R, and the result will be a differential E. So, that differential E again is the same way as we did here. But this time, instead of rho V, we use rho S. And instead of dV, we use ds. So, the formula now, dE will be equal to dQ all over 4 pi epsilon naught R squared AR. Ganyan pa rin yung formula. Ang magbabago lang is yung dQ. So, E now is equal to the integral, surface area integral of dQ, which is rho S times ds. Rho S, then ilagay ko na dito yung AR all over 4 pi epsilon naught R squared. Tapos AR yan. Tapos dito naman yung ating differential surface area. And this will be our formula for the electric field intensity due to a surface area, sheet charge. And lastly, meron pa tayong isang configuration, yung tinatawag natin na line charge. So sa line charge naman, dito meron ulit tayong line charge density. Line charge density. Charge density. Ito naman, ito yung charge per meter. Kasi length to eh. Line to eh. Density. Rho L. So this is coulomb per meter. So the formula is the same. Rho L will be equal to dq charge per dl. D length. So ito, infinite line. Pwedeng infinite, pwedeng mamaya yung infinite. So if this is a straight line, or hindi straight line, kahit anong curved line, basta line, I want to determine the electric field here at point P ulit. So ang gagawin, kukuha ulit ako ng maliit lang na dq dito. And that dq is equal to rho L times dl. Diba? Cross multiply. Then tignan natin yung kanyang effect. And this will be dE. So ulit, ito yung DE natin parehas lang. Ang magbabago lang, ito magiging rho L. Ito magiging dl instead of ds. So our line charge now, E, diretso ko na siya. E will be equal to the integral. So this is a line integral of rho L. Palitan ko lang yung rho S, AR, all over 4 pi epsilon naught R squared. Then this will be dl. So this will be the formula for the electric field intensity along a line charge. So these are the basic three na distributions. Ito yung basic. Now, kung yan yung basic, meron din tayong tinatawag na standard configurations of charges. Standard configuration of charges. Standard charge configuration. Pag sinabi natin standard, these are the mostly used na configurations. Charge configurations. So, ano yung mga standard na ginagamit natin? Configurations. Una, yung mostly ginamit natin ng chapter, nung unang topic, yun yung tinatawag natin na point charge. Diba? Standard yan eh. Yun yung most na ginamit natin nung unang topic. Yung point charge, madali lang to eh, na isolve. And napakadali din siyang, mas madali pa siyang isolve if we solve it using the spherical coordinate system. Ang gagawin natin, yung charge natin, ilagay natin sa origin. So if we take the electric field intensity around this, kahit dito lang siya, the direction of that electric field intensity will be in that direction. Diba? Ano yung direction na yan kapag nasa spherical tayo? Diba ganyan yung spherical? Yung direction na yan is actually, ito yung ating rho. So yung direction na lang is just a rho. Diba? So diretso na masasolve mo yung electric field intensity and that will be equal to the Q over 4 pi epsilon naught. And ito yung magnitude. Alam na natin yung magnitude niya is rho. The radius, square mo lang siya tapos yung direction niya is a rho. Diba? Instead of solving for the displacement vector, kagaya ng ginawa natin ng unang topics, sinolve natin yung capital R using the position vectors, small r, R2, minus R1, para ganun yung ginagawa natin. Pwede diretso na itong gamitin mo kapag spherical coordinate. So this is in spherical coordinate system. Spherical coordinate system. Kung naka-rectangular ka, kailangan i-solve yung capital R, yung displacement vector. Pero dito, hindi mo na kailangan kasi diretso na. Alam mo na yung direction ng electric field is the same direction as the direction of arrow. Yun yung kagandahan kapag alam mo kung anong coordinate system yung pwedeng gamitin. Sabi ko before, so hindi lang isa yung gagamitin natin na coordinate system. Kasi sometimes may coordinate system na mas magandang gamitin kaysa different coordinate system. Although, pwede pa rin gamitin yung rectangular. Kaya lang, mas mahirap lang siya kasi solve mo pa yung vector R. Dito, diretso na. Then, another standard configuration, yung infinite line. Infinite line charge. So, ano ibig sabihin nito? Infinite line charge. Ibig sabihin, napakalayo ng line natin. So for example, kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina sa unang section, if my line charge is ito, then ito yung point na gusto kong isolve. If this distance, itong distance na to, let's call it R, if the total length of the line, ano yung total length of the line, yung line natin yung from this point to this point, is much greater than that R, yung displacement na yan, yung point natin, then we can assume that this is an infinite line. Bakit? Infinite line. Kasi hindi mo na makikita yung dulo and dulo niya kapag nandito ka na. Diba? So you can do that. Pero kung yung displacement mo, katulad ng example ko kanina, kung from Batak to Cagayan, yung aking total length line, Batak to Cagayan, then gusto ko hanapin yung electric field sa San Nicolas. So I can assume this is an infinite line. Diba? Kasi malapit lang yung San Nicolas. Dadaanan actually ng line yung San Nicolas. Diba? Then, pero kung ang gusto kong hanapin is yung electric field naman sa Amerika, from Batak to Cagayan, yung line charge, pero ang gusto kong hanapin sa Amerika. Ano ibig sabihin yan? Ang layo, di ba? Hindi na pwede yung infinite line charge kasi mas maliit yung distance or yung total length ng line kaysa displacement ng point ko. Naintindihan nyo? So, applicable lang siya kapag mas malaki yung total length ng malayo. Ng malayo, bakit? Kasi i-assume din natin na yung nagiging straight line yung curve na yan eh. Kasi parang sa calculus, kung mapapansin nyo, kung i-zoom in mo yan, ang itsura niya parang maliliit na straight line lang na ganyan, di ba? Patong-patong na straight line. Parang pixelated siya na straight line. So kung mag-zoom in tayo, kasi malapit na malapit lang yung aking point P, pwede kong i-assume yan na straight line. And actually, yun yung gagawin natin. We will assume that one as a straight line. Kasi malapit lang na malapit. Kasi this is infinite line, di ba? So kung infinite line, napakalayo nito, napakahaba. So, and maganda rin na gawin natin is, gawin natin yung line to be at the z-axis. Para mas madali yung calculation. Nasa z-axis yung ating line charge. So, ano ibig sabihin nito? So, ang ibig sabihin, ito yung ating coordinate system. Nandito yung ating, teka lang. Kung ito yung ating z-axis, ito yung z-axis, ito yung x-axis, and ito yung y. Yung ating infinite line, ilagay natin dito. Pag ganyan, tuloy-tuloy dyan, up to positive infinity. Then, dito rin, tuloy-tuloy yan, up to negative infinity. Then, i-assume natin, nagiging straight line siya kasi malapit lang yung ating point P. So, hanapin natin yung P dito, ay yung electric field dito. So, ang maganda, ipangilagay natin yung para yung derivation natin. Gawin natin, sige, N na lang. Okay lang yan. So, if that is our point P, what is the electric field intensity due to the infinite line charge na yan? So, dito, meron tayong ibang factors. Kuha tayo ng differential charge, diba? DQ parang yung line charge natin. Yung ginawa natin sa line charge. Kumuha tayo ng maliit lang na line na DQ. Then, anong gagawin dyan sa DQ na yan? Kukunin natin yung effect niyan sa point na hinahanap natin. Yan. And this will be, kung ito yung point natin, ano yung effect niya? This will be the differential E. And this will be our R. Then, kung ayan yung point natin, meron tayo dito. Drawing ako ng straight line. So kung nasa cylindrical coordinate system natin, ang distance na to from that point to the z-axis, ano ulit yan? Yan yung ating R, di ba? Radius, kung cylindrical. And ito yung ating AR. AR, yan yung magiging direction niya. So this vector here will be R times ER. How about yung etong vector na to, yung pababa na to? Bakit kailangan ko yan? Para ma-solve natin si R, isolve natin si R eh. Bakit isosolve natin si R? Kasi yung formula natin, remember yung formula ng DE. DE is equal to DQ all over 4 pi epsilon naught the magnitude R squared AR. So, kailangan natin yung R na yan. Yan yung R na yan eh. So, yung R natin na vector R, mayroong pababa na direction. Anong direction na yan? Ito, AZ natin. Anong length na to from here to here? That is just Z because you are in the Z axis. Z lang yan. Bababa siya ng Z. Anong direction? Negative AZ. So, what will be our R? Eh, di subtract lang natin. Yung R natin will be equal to, ito to the right. Yung R, small r na yan. Anong direction ng vector na yan? AR, diba? In the direction of AR. Yung Z natin, Z, pero negative to kasi yung AZ natin pababa. So, yung ating vector R now will be RAR minus ZAZ. Nakita nyo? Yung triangle na yan, ito triangle na to. Components ng R are AZ pababa and RAR na pa right, positive. Pababa, negative. So, R is equal to that. So, kung alam na natin yung vector R, and yung DQ naman, how about yung DQ? Kung given, ito yung ating rho L. Given yung rho L. Rho L yan eh. So, yung DQ natin will be equal to rho L times DL. Diba? DQ is equal to rho L times DL. But what is our DL? Tingnan mo yung direction niya. Yung DL natin is along the Z-axis. So, yung differential na yan, yung DL is just equal to, at the Z-axis, this is just equal to DZ. Z lang yan. Kasi nasa Z-axis lang siya. So, ngayon, isubstitute na natin para alam natin yung ating E. So, DE will be equal to yung DQ, rho L, times DZ. All over 4 pi epsilon naught. How about yung R? O sige, R muna, R squared. How about yung AR? AR will be equal to R all over the magnitude of R. Diba? Unit vector is equal to vector itself divided by its magnitude. Then if we simplify this one, this will be rho L dz all over 4 pi epsilon naught times R all over this one. R times R squared, the R cube. Pero alam na natin yung R. Yung R natin is ito. Itong part na to. Yan yung R natin. So, kung yan yung R natin, ano yung magnitude niyan? Ano yung magiging magnitude niyan? So, D ito, integrate na natin. So, ito E. So, this will be the integral. Constant naman tong part na to. So, pwede natin ilabas rho L over 4 pi epsilon naught. And matitira dito will be dz times yung R, which is R, AR, minus Z, AZ. All over, yung magnitude niya is square root of R squared plus Z squared. Remember that this is square root of R squared. Absolute value of R is equal to the square root of R squared plus Z squared. Diba? Ginawa na natin to. So if you cube that one, so this will be the square root of R squared plus Z squared. Tapos, i-cube pa natin siya. Bakit cube natin? Kasi R cube to eh. Naka-cube siya. Yan. Then, we will do this one. The limit will be from positive infinity to negative infinity. Bakit positive infinity to negative infinity? Because we are integrating from positive infinity to negative infinity. This is infinite line charge. Infinite line to eh. So, ang magiging limit natin is from negative infinity to positive infinity. Then next, if you take the integral, kasi ito hindi pwedeng ilabas to, this is not constant, yung RAR minus ZAZ dito. Meron tayong Z dito sa baba, so hindi natin siya pwedeng gawing constant. Pero, kung titignan natin, upper limit minus lower limit, ano mangyayari sa, para mas madali yung computation natin, ano mangyayari sa Z? Upper limit minus lower limit, symmetrical lang.
0.
Magiging 0 yan kasi symmetrical siya. Parehas lang yung nasa taas, positive. Parehas lang siya nasa baba, negative. Di ba? So if we add them, magiging 0 yan. So pwede natin tanggalin sa equation para mas madali. Kasi kapag mag-upper limit minus lower limit tayo, mag-0 din naman yan eh. And obvious naman na talagang walang direction sa AZ yung ating E. Di ba? Kasi yung E natin dapat pa dito lang eh. Yun yung ibig sabihin nito. Walang magiging yung E natin walang magiging pababa. Puro pad AR lahat. Dito yung magiging direction ng ating total E. Bakit? Kasi magka-cancel lahat. May pataas, may pababa. May pataas, may pababa na differential E. Diba? Bakit? Kasi parehas lang yung nasa baba, parehas lang yung nasa taas. Positive infinity and negative infinity. So magka-cancel lahat ng Z component. So tanggalin na natin yan. And this will be equal to rho L over 4 pi epsilon naught. Ano pang constant dito? Ito, RAR. Constant yung R. So, pwede natin ilabas yung R na yan. Ilagay natin dyan. So, ang matitira dito will be dz all over the square root of r squared plus z squared cube. Then, yung ER natin. Then, from negative infinity to positive infinity. Or from positive infinity to negative infinity. Paras lang. Then, what's next? Take the integral. Ito yung ginawa namin kanina. Ano yung integral nito? Paano yan i-integrate? Ang ginawa namin kanina, trigosolve. Trigo-substitution. So, parang naulit-ulit talaga. So, using trigosolve, calculate the integral of dz all over the square root of r squared plus z squared as ito, cube. So, anong substitution na gagawin natin dito? So, yung substitution na gagawin, if you draw the triangle, because that is plus yan. So, yan yung magiging hypotenuse natin. R squared plus z squared, the square root. Yan yung hypotenuse. Ito yung theta. Ito yung R, ito yung Z. So, ano yung magiging function natin? Kailangan may Z and R. Pag mong tignan yung hypotenuse, ano yun? Opposite and adjacent side. Ano yung function na yun? Tangent. So, TOA. Tangent of theta is equal to the opposite side over the adjacent side. And Z now will be equal to R tangent theta. So, yan yung ating substitution. So, let Z be equal to R tangent theta. Then what's next? What is dz? dz is equal to the derivative of r tangent theta. That's the derivative of tangent. It's just secant square theta. D theta. Then next, how about the square root of r squared plus z squared? What is this? This is equal to the square root of r squared. Ano yung z natin? R tangent theta. Square mo, magiging r squared tangent squared theta. And this will be equal to the square root. Factor out yung r squared. So 1 plus tangent squared theta. Then, applying identity, what is 1 plus tangent squared theta? Ito na part is just equal to secant squared theta. So, r squared times secant squared theta. You take the square root of the squared, and then magiging r secant theta. Then, let's do now the substitution. So, sa taas, meron tayong dz. So, the integral, aning dz natin, na-solve natin, r secant squared theta d theta. Then, sa baba, meron tayong the square root of r squared plus z squared, which is equal to r secant theta. R secant theta. Pero ito, kailangan i-cube pa natin because this is raised to 3. Raised to 3 siya. Then, we can now do the cancellation. Ano pwede cancelin dito? Pwede cancelin yung r and secant squared. So, ano matitira? So, ang matitira will be d theta all over r squared. May squared ka pa dito kasi natanggal yung isa, cube yan. Then, dito, square. Dalawa yung natanggal, so isa lang yung matitira, secant theta. Then what is 1 over secant theta? That is just equal to cosine theta.
Cosine
D theta. What's the integral of cosine theta? Is just sine theta. So 1 r squared times sine theta. Hindi ko na isusulat yung plus c. So balik tayo sa problem. Ano yung sine? Kailangan pa natin i-solve yung sine. So balik tayo sa triangle. What is sine theta? So, tignan mo yung triangle. So, ano yung opposite side? Z. Ano yung H? Hypotenuse. So, square root of r squared plus z squared. So therefore, sine theta is equal to z over r squared plus z squared. So yung answer natin will be z all over r squared yan times the square root r squared plus z squared. Bakit? Kasi yung sine theta is z. Ito yung sine theta. I-times mo yung 1 over r squared. Yan ngayon, ilalagay natin sa problem natin dito. Control C. So, ang mangyari, tatanggalin na natin to. Tanggalin ko na to. Yan. So, ang magiging sagot, ito. Kasi nasolve na natin yan eh. Z all over r squared, square root of r squared plus z squared. Pero kailangan natin maglagay ng limit from negative infinity to positive infinity. So, paano mag-apply ng limit? This is fundamental theorem of calculus. But before we do that, we can cancel out yung r dito. Isang r. Then, ilabas natin yung r kasi constant lang yan. So, this will be equal to rho L all over 4 pi epsilon naught times r. So, matitira dito, applying the limits, limit as z approaches, yung upper limit, z over square root of r squared plus z squared, then minus yung lower limit, limit as z approaches negative infinity of z all over the square root of r squared plus z squared. Yan yung fundamental theorem of calculus, upper limit minus lower limit. Then, meron pa tayong AR. Then, how do we solve this one? Paano natin isosolve yung limit niyan? Nakalimutan nyo na yung limit? So, isolve natin yung una. Pwede nyo gamitin yung calcu nyo. Kung gusto nyo yung calcu, madali lang kapag calcu yan. So, yung una, ito, limit. Sige, isa-isayin natin. Dati oras tayo. Di bangir tayo na ibusang kami ti oras. R squared plus z squared. Yan, solve natin to. Ano yung magiging limit ito? Ano sa tingin nyo? So, this will be equal to, anong gagawin natin ulit? Pag kumukuha tayo ng limit, kailangan mayroon tayong 1 over something, di ba? Bakit? Kasi kapag 1 over something, we are approaching infinity. Ang nangyayari, nagiging 0 yung 1 over something, di ba? 1 over x before. Yun yung ginagawa natin. Naalala niyo pa yung calculus? Sino't calculus yun? Hangasak? So, paano natin gagawin yan? So, dito, sa baba, z, square root. Anong gagawin natin dito? We can factor out that z squared. Ano mangyayari kapag pinactor out natin yung z squared? So, this will be, yung r squared, kailangan mag-divide ako dito ng z squared. Diba? Para kung i-multiply ko yan, magiging z squared pa rin. Ay, r squared pa rin. Then, plus, ito, factor out ko, magiging 1 yan. Bakit ko ginawa yun? Kasi meron na akong over z dyan, no? Kung mayroon akong over z, anong nangyari? Nagiging 0. Diba? Nagets nyo? Then, ito, z squared. Pwede ko nang ilabas yan kasi z squared naka-multiplication. So, ito, magiging the limit as z approaches infinity of z all over, square root of z squared is just z. Then, dito, magiging r squared over z squared plus 1. Magkakancel yan. Cancel. Then, ano matitira? So, this will be equal to the limit as z approaches infinity of 1 all over the square root of r squared over z squared plus 1. Then, applying the limit, ano mangyari dito? Magiging 0 kasi may 1 over z ka na dito, di ba? 1 over z squared z cubed. Basta may over z ka. Kahit anong power man yan, kapag you are taking the limit to the infinity, nagiging 0 yan eh. Yan yung rule natin. So, kung 0 yan, 1 over the square root of 1. Anong sagot? Eh, di 1. Nakuha nyo? Naman. Eh, paano kung yung sa negative infinity? Paano kung negative infinity? Anong mangyayari? Dito. Anong mangyayari kapag negative infinity? Magiging, solve ko pa eh. Nakita mo ta, magiging negative
1.
Negative 1 yan. Kasi negative infinity lang yan. Magiging negative 1 yan. So, kung ito 1, ito negative 1, ano mangyari? So, this will be equal to, kopyahin ko lang to. Yan. So, ang limit natin will be 1 minus negative 1 as AR. So, ano yung magiging sagot? 1 minus negative 1 is 2. Positive 2. I-multiply natin dito, edi magiging yung mayroon kang force sa baba. So, the electric field now, due to an infinite line, will be equal to rho L all over 2 over 4, that's just 2 pi epsilon naught times R. Then, bakit small r yan? AR. And this will be the formula for the electric field intensity due to an infinite line. Any question? Hello? The question nyo, okay kayo lang? And the last configuration na gagawin natin, standard configuration. Kung may infinite line, mayroon din tayong infinite plane, infinite sheet. Wala tayong infinite volume, mayroon lang tayong infinite plane charge. Ano yung infinite plane charge? Infinite plane charge. So, ano naman yung ibig sabihin nito? So, parang ganun din. Yung distance natin is much smaller than the length of the charge, plane charge. So, if we draw this one, parang paganyan yan, and so on. Yan. So, ito, patungo to positive infinity. Yan, infinity. Ito, to infinity ulit. And so on. Depende kung nasaan yung positive dyan. Kung nasaan yung positive, depende sa coordinate system na gagamitin. Okay? Now, ang gagawin ulit natin, kuha ka ng maliit na charge. Dito. Then, determine the electric field intensity. So, kung mapapansin nyo, mayroon tayong electric field sa taas, mayroon tayong electric field sa baba. Ano mangyari? Magiging parehas lang. Diba? Mapapansin nyo yan? Parehas lang yan. And ito. Tama ba? Hello? Hello?
Hello, sir.
Mangmangagdab.
Yes, sir.
Nakapsot,
Yes, sir.
Leonard.
Oh, sir.
Nakapsot.
Mayat, sir.
Mayat, sir.
Mayat, sir. And pwede rin natin itong gawin into, hindi lang rectangular coordinate system, di ba? X, Y, Z. Pwede rin ito gawin natin sa cylindrical. Mabaling nga, let's put this one into a circular shape, di ba? Bakit? Baka mas madali yung computation natin kapag spherical tayo, ay cylindrical yung shape niya. Cylinder, circle siya. Assume natin circle, kaya positive lahat yan. So, kukuha tayo, ilagay natin, ito yung origin natin. So, dito yung origin. So, assume mo, this is circle. Ito yung origin. Circle to pag ganyan. Pero patungo sa infinity lahat yan, positive infinity. So, ang kukunin natin, maliit lang na differential Q here. dQ. Then, ano magiging coordinate nito? So, di ba, remember kung cylindrical to? Parang ganyan yung ginawa natin before. Di ba? Ano yung magiging coordinate nito? Kung point yan. This one is located at, ano itong distance na to? Anong ginamit natin kapag cylindrical? R. So, R. Then we have the angle here, phi. Then, yung z natin, because this is an xy plane, nasa xy plane lang to will be 0. Yung z mo is 0. Naka nyo, r, phi, and 0. Bakit 0? Kasi nasa xy plane ka lang. Ito yung z-axis pataas. So, 0 lang yan. Then, determine the electric field at this point, at the z-axis, para mas madali yung computation natin. Let's call this point, this one, ano naman to? Ano yung kanyang volume? coordinates. So, ito naman, wala kang radius dito kasi nasa z-axis ka, di ba? Wala kang radius, yung pag ganun. So, 0 yung r. Yung phi, ewan ko kung mayroon kang value ng phi. Sige, lagyan natin ng phi. Pero, dapat wala sana, 0 lahat. Z lang yan kasi pataas lang yan. Sige, kahit gawin mo 0 yan. And what will be the effect of that dq if this is a dq? O ganyan yung dq natin. So, yung de natin, pag ganyan din, yung de. So, what will be DE? Again, we repeat our procedure. DE will be equal to DQ. Remember the formula? DQ all over 4 pi epsilon naught R squared times AR. Pero dito, wala tayong R and AR. Ano yung R natin? Meron pala. Ito yung R natin eh. Ito, from this point to this point. Ito yung R, di ba? From DQ to the point that we are solving. And how do we solve for that R? Kailangan natin ulit isolve yan. So, assume natin ulit, ano to? Rho S. Meron tayong rho S. And that rho S is equal to DQ over D, or this DQ will be equal to rho S times the differential surface area. Ano yung magiging differential surface area natin? This is a cylinder. Yung baba niya is just a circle. So, yung radius natin yung nagbabago. From 0 to positive infinity. Diba? So, yung magiging limit natin. 0 to positive infinity. How about phi? Yung phi natin, kailangan from 0, 1 revolution to 2 pi. So, dalawa. Kasi area to. Diba? Hindi ito line charge. Area to. So, kailangan dalawa yung ds natin. Yung ds natin will be dr and d phi. Bakit dr and d phi? Remember yung cylindrical natin? Tignan nyo. Ano yung ds nito? Kapag ganyan yung configuration, di ba pataas pa yung direction natin before ng ds. Ginawa natin siyang vector. So, ito lang yung kailangan mo. ds, dr. Ito yung dr, di ba? Ito yung dr na part. Ito. And ito is yung d phi. Ito yung d phi. Pero kailangan mo siya i-multiply ng r para maging length. So, yung ds natin dyan, sige, solve muna natin yung ds. Ito yung drawing. I-recall lang natin to. Ito yung area natin. Yung hanapin natin na ds. Tama? Ito, r. Yung total r. Pero itong length na to is just dr. Very small, dr. Then, itong angle na to, maliit din. Ito yung d phi natin. So, kailangan alam natin tong side na to. Ano ulit yung side na yan? Ginawa na natin to. Arc length, it's equal to the radius times the angle. Diba? Pero kailangan nasa region tayo. Remember, region tayo. So, if we solve for the area, length times width, dr times this one. So, ds now will be equal to r, dr times d phi. Remember, dapat yung formula natin. Dito yan. Di ba? Di ba? Kitaan nyo, i-review chapter 1 at dami ni Jai. Ha? Ang gawin nyo, ilagay nyo sa, maglagay kayo ng maliit na index card. Summarize tayo pa, in table tayo sa pwede dito. So, kailangan kabisado nyo na to, ds. Yung area lang yung gusto natin, hindi yung direction. So, ds lang yan. So, yan yung ds. Ang susunod na hanapin natin is yung r. Paano natin hahanapin yung r? Yung triangle ulit. Itong r na to, triangle, may pataas na z in the direction of z. Then, ano pa? Pero yung r natin, pag ganyan. Pag ganyan tayo, di ba? Hindi pa ganun. So, it should be negative AR. Makuha nyo? So, yung R natin, capital R, will be equal to negative R in the direction of AR. Bakit negative? Kasi pag ganun tayo yung yung R natin pa, yung direction niya is toward the center, not outward the center. Di ba? Outward the center is positive AR. Toward the center is negative. Then, yung Z natin pataas. Ito na part. So, ganito lang yan eh. Paganyan ka, then paganyan ka. Yan yung R. Diba? Nakuha nyo? Yung unang paganon is negative RAR. Bakit? Kasi it's toward, going toward the center. It's opposite. Kapag paganyan ka, yan yung positive AR. Pero kapag paganon ka, yun yung negative. Opposite niya. Then, next is pataas. So, kung pataas, Z direction. And it should be positive kasi pataas. Ano yung component niya? Ano yung coefficient niya? This is Z. Yung kanyang location is Z. Di ba? So, it's just equal to plus Z, AZ. Nakuha niyo yung R? Ulit-ulit tayo sa R. Okay na. Kompleto na? So, we can now do our calculation. E now will be equal to the integral, surface area integral. Ano yung dq ulit? Yung dq is equal to rho s times ds. Rho s times ds. All over 4 pi epsilon naught. Yung r natin, pwede ko nang ilabas to eh. Tapos na natin to kanina. Ganito na lang. Ang gawin ko, i-multiply ko na lang yung unit vector. R all over absolute value R squared to kanina times R magiging cube siya. Meron pa akong squared dito. Diba? Then, mag-substitute tayo ng values. So, ano yung mga values natin? Rho S. Alam natin yung ds. ds is equal to R times dr times dv. Saan ang galing yun? Ito. Then, all over 4 pi epsilon naught times yung r natin is negative r, ar plus z, az. Then, i-divide natin yung square root. Yung magnitude niya is just r squared plus z squared. Then, kailangan pa natin tong i-cube. Ayan na. Nasundan niyo pa? Hello? Hello? Okay kay Pai?
Opo.
Okay kay Pai? Oh, simplify natin. So, because we have a two integral here, dr and dv, kailangan din natin ng dalawang derivative, kailangan natin ng dalawang integral. Diba? Kaya may s tayo dyan. Ano yung magiging limit natin? dr and dv. So, for dr, our limit is from 0 to infinity. Yung dr natin, di ba? Remember? Yung radius natin, we start at the origin outward to infinity. Then, for dv, ano yung magiging limit natin? 1 revolution. I-rotate lang natin siya into 1 revolution. Kasi yung circle yung gusto natin. So, from 0, ano yung 1 revolution? Kailangan naka-radian. Ito dapat 2 pi. Hindi 360 degrees. So, yun yung magiging limit. So, ano matitira dito? And again, dito naman, ano mangyayari sa R natin dito? Yung RAR. Parang yung ginawa natin kanina, yung magiging direction ng ating DE will be just a DZ. Magkakancel ulit lahat ng R's. Parang yung ginawa natin sa infinite line. Bakit? Kasi balance lang yung radius natin eh. So lahat ng factors sa R direction, magkakancel out lang. So, pwede natin tanggalin ulit itong R dito. So, matitira is just Z. Kasi yung ating direction magiging AZ lang. Tama yung direction natin. So, this will be rho S times R times AZ. Mayroon pa tayong Z. Nakalimutan kayo Z. Z, then AZ. All over 4 pi epsilon naught. Then, that one, the square root of r squared plus z squared, tapos cube. Then, multiply natin yung differentials, dr and dv. Then, how do we integrate this? Ano yung magiging constant dito? Yung z is constant here. Remember, yung z is constant. Why? Because we are integrating with respect to r and v. So, parang hindi, kanina, z yung variable natin. Dito, yung z yung constant. So, pwede nating ilabas yan. So, this will be rho s constant. Z constant. Then, meron pa tayong 4 pi epsilon naught. Then, isa-isahin natin. Unahin natin, anong matitira dito? So, sige. Integral. Ay, Timon. Homework. Ano matitira? Matitira will be R all over the square root of R squared plus Z squared tapos cube. Tapos dr, dv, tapos dito ilagay ko yung AZ. And this is from 0 to 2 pi, from 0 to infinity. Unahin natin yung dr. So, kung dr, itong part na to, parang similar with our previous. Ito. Diba? Z over R squared plus Z squared. Ito naman, R over R squared plus Z squared. Yung R naman yung magiging variable natin. Baliktad na. So yung sagot natin, medyo parehas. Ano yung sagot natin ng derivative? Yung derivative niya will be... Sana? Ay, mali pala. Meron dz over 1 lang. Wala palang R yan. So, kailangan ulit balikan natin to. May R sa taas. So, kailangan, anong gagawin? Substitution ulit. Kayo nagagawa? Hello? 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 So, i-integrate nyo ulit yung R all over the square root of R squared plus Z squared. Cube to. Tas dr. Yan. Then, after that, kapag nakuha nyo to, ilagay nyo dyan, susunod nyo naman yung dphi. Ilabas nyo lahat ng constant, then you integrate dphi. Actually, yung dphi, diretso lang eh. 0 to 2 pi lang to, di ba? Pwedeng unahin natin yung dphi. Mas maganda unahin yung dphi. Kasi wala ka namang phi sa term sa loob. So, lahat ng constant na yan. So, ang mangyayari, integral of dphi. What is integral of dphi? That will be phi. Then, upper limit minus lower limit. So, 2 pi minus 0. So, 2 pi minus 0 is 2 pi. I-multiply lang natin dito. So, i-multiply natin yung 2 pi. So, ano mangyayari? Rho S over Z. 2 pi over 4 pi. So, magkakancel yung pi dyan. Then, magiging 2 lang to. Di ba? Then, epsilon naught. Then, ang matitira is just the R. R over cube dr from 0 to infinity. Tapos, ito, a z. O, yun. Madali na lang yan. So, gawin nyo na to. Integrate nyo na. Ang lalabas dito should be, ano dapat yung integral nito? At klase, oh? Hello? Hello? May klase kayo? So, if you take the integral of this one, so the integral of r over the square root of r squared plus z squared, then this is cube dr. So, let's do again the substitution. Trigosolve. So, using trigosolve, triangle ulit. Ito ulit yung ating square root of r squared plus z squared. Ito yung ating theta. This is a 90 degrees. Ito yung ating r. Ito yung ating z. Or baliktad na pala kasi yung ating variable now is r. So, kailangan ito yung constant z. Constant na yung z. Ito yung ating r. So, dito, tangent ulit yung gagawin. Tangent of theta is equal to the opposite r over z. So, r will be equal to z tangent of theta. Yan yung ating magiging substitution. Then, next is dr. So, dr will be equal to what? Z times secant squared theta d theta. Then, the square root of r squared plus z squared now will be equal to the square root of z squared plus yung r natin is z squared tangent squared theta. And this will be equal to z, factor out z squared times 1 plus tangent squared theta. And that will be secant squared theta. And if you take the square root, this will be equal to z times secant theta. Then let's do the substitution dito. So the integral will become, sa taas meron tayong r. Ano yung r? Z tangent theta. Then i-multiply natin yung dr. Ano yung dr? Z secant squared theta d theta. All over, sa baba is the square root. Z secant theta. Then anong gagawin dito? I-cube pa natin. Then tignan natin ano pwede cancelin. Ito, z squared. Dalawang z pwede cancelin. Dalawang secant pwede cancelin. So magiging isa na lang. So this will be the integral of tangent theta all over, meron pa tayong z, then meron pa tayong isang secant theta. D theta. Then, to integrate this, labas natin yung 1 over z constant. Tangent theta is equal to sine theta all over cosine theta. Identity. All over, yung second naman is 1 over cosine theta. Then this 1 times this 1 is 1 times that. You can cancel out that cosine. So this will be just sine theta. So this will be 1 over z, the integral of sine theta d theta. So what's the integral of sine theta? It will be negative cosine. So negative 1 over z cosine of theta. So what is cosine theta? We go back to our triangle. Cosine theta, adjacent side. What is the adjacent side? That is z. All over the hypotenuse square root of r squared plus z squared. Z over r squared plus z squared. So you substitute here, this will be 1 over z times z all over the square root of r squared plus z squared. We can cancel out that z. So the integral now will be equal to negative 1 all over the square root of r squared plus z squared. Ito na yung integral natin, pero kailangan from 0 to infinity. So ilagay natin dito, kopyahin ko to. Then tanggalin natin to. Ang sagot natin dito will be, yan. So this will be negative 1 over r squared plus z squared. Square root. Then lagay natin from 0 to infinity. That should be from 0 to infinity. Then upper limit minus lower limit. So this will be equal to rho s z all over 2 epsilon naught times the limit of negative 1 over the square root of r squared plus z squared as r approaches infinity, upper limit, minus the lower limit. If that is 0, so lagyan na lang natin 0. So this will be negative 1 over 0 plus z squared. So that will be positive 1 over z squared. Positive 1 over z squared. This is z. Then next, ano pwedeng gawin dito? Hindi, this should be z pala kasi square root pa siya. So this should be z. So ito, pwede ulit natin i-factor out yung r. Or yung z, parang yung ginawa natin kanina to take the limit of this one. To take the limit of that one. Sige, ilagay natin dito. Limit as r approaches infinity of negative 1 over the square root r. Negative 1 over r squared plus z squared. So, ang gagawin natin, tanggalin natin yung r squared sa baba. So, ito magiging square root of r squared, factor out 1 plus z squared over r squared. Then, negative 1. Then, this will be the limit of negative 1 all over r, square root of r squared. Then, matitira sa loob is 1 plus z squared over r squared. Pero tignan nyo, this will be 0 and ang mangyari, magiging negative 1 over r as approaches infinity. So, this whole limit will also become 0, 1 over something. So, this 1 is 0. So, the only remaining here is 1 over z. Then, if you multiply it with rho s times z over 2 epsilon naught, magkakancel yung z. So, therefore, our electric field now, intensity, will be equal to, magkakancel yung z, is this rho s all over 2 epsilon naught, and the direction is az. And that is our electric field intensity due to an infinite plane charge. Okay, so we derive the formulas for infinite line charge, infinite plane charge. So these are the standard configurations that mostly used in electromagnetism. Okay.